Giridvaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridvaradhari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridvaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridvaradhari Jashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Vishnupada Paramahansa Pribrojakacharya Statara Satashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Gaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaitika Radha Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki Shishi Radha Krishna Go Gopakapina Shamakunda Radha Kundi Gidi Govardhana Ki Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki Shri Mayapur Dhama Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Devi Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jainatai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so on text 38. From Canto 11, Chapter 2, Maharaj Nimi meets the 9 Yogendras. Although the duality of the material world does not ultimately exist, the conditioned soul experiences as real under the influence of his own conditioned intelligence. right? Because what you call real and what you call not real, right, is depending upon your experience, how you experience something, like that. The existence of things are there, but now how serious we say is the importance of them, that's based on how we interpret what we experience. Right? So under his conditioned intelligence, he calls it real. Means it exists, but he says the experience that he's getting is real. So the existence is there, but the experience they get, it's not actually real. Because they're thinking that the thing that they're experiencing is producing the experience, when actually Krishna is producing the experience. Right? Through the interaction of his various energies and the modes of nature. So that's where the illusion is we'll think, oh yes, this, sitting at the beach is making me happy. But the beach it's sand. It's not making anybody happy. Even it's not happy, right? It's just sitting there, right? But Krishna is the potency of whatever is the aspect we appreciate of the beach. The naturalness, the power of the waves, the greatness of it, or the beauty of it, or whatever it is that's there, that quality is Krishna. That's producing the experience, right? So that's the actual reality. As you see, is that that means the Yogendras themselves, they're Paramahamsas who then just go around, they see everything connected to Krishna. So that's how they're seeing it. But then in the conditioned state, we are thinking that all these other positions, they're the actual reality. Because when we say something's abstract, like we're saying there, the beach is abstract, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that 10 different people may get 10 different experiences from being on that beach. Right? And each one will say what they're experiencing is real. Right? Because for them it is. Right? But the problem is that reality they're experiencing, if it's not in connection with Krishna, then it's not actually a very the experience it generates will give will be temporary. It'll give a temporary result. It'll give a material result. Right? This imaginary experience of a world separated from Krishna can be compared to the acts of dreaming and desiring, because that's the whole point. If it's separated from Krishna, that's real, or if it's not real. Yes. When the conditioned soul dreams at night of something desirable or horrible, or when he daydreams of what he would like to have or to avoid, he creates a reality that has no existence beyond his own imagination. So what you're experiencing also is real, but it doesn't go beyond your experience. What your mind is perceiving, that's as far as it gets. The next person doesn't perceive it. Does that make sense? Yeah. The tendency of the mind is to accept and reject various activities based on sense gratification. Therefore, an intelligent person should control the mind, restricting it from the illusion of seeing things separate from Krishna. And when the mind is thus controlled, you will experience actual fearlessness. So this not seeing things separate from Krishna is actually the essential point of Krishna consciousness, because Krishna consciousness means you're always conscious of Krishna. So that means in whatever situation you're seeing, whatever's the proper attitude, whatever's the endeavors you can make, results you can get, all that's seen in connection with Krishna. What to do, how to see how Krishna is working, but also how to see what is the service one can render to Krishna in that situation. Right? Okay. Something? No, okay. Okay, Srila Madhvacharya has quoted several verses from the Harivamsa, illustrating that the living entity, bewildered by identifying with the material body, home, family, friends, and so on, and thus entangled in the cycle of birth and death, accepts phantasmagoria as a reality. Because they think this will be great, it'll make me happy, this will happen, that'll happen, so many different things. So it's their experience, what they're thinking, because even the other family members have a totally different idea, and they're in the same place, right? So that's the thing, is one has one's idea about this. Srila Jiva Goswami then says, if one seriously desires to vanquish the duality of material illusion, one must adopt the process of chanting and hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord. Srila Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also cited the following Vedic reference: Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva nyasteva nasteva gatiranyata. Yeah. So that means that all the religious processes that are there, if they're not seen in connection with Krishna, they're not actually going to give a good result. Good result comes from connecting to Krishna. That's the actual thing. Right? According to Srila Jiva Goswami, although living entity is Shuddha, pure spirit, he imagines that he is a material creation and thus entangles himself in the network of illusion called Deha Patya Kala Taradi. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti has used the words Manasa Pratyaksha to describe the experience of material life. Manasa Pratyaksha means that which is experienced only within the mind. Right? Because how your mind interprets it, you'll say that's good. Does that make sense? Like I remember, let's say for an example, just the difference in, when summertime comes in Mayapur, it can get quite hot. You know, let's say like up to 40 degrees or so. And so for us who are always there, then that's a bit hot. You know, it's life, but it's a bit hot. But then I remember Sahotra Maharaj, when he'd come, he'd specifically come later and stay after the festival. Most everyone else comes and stays before the festival, and then after the festival leaves because it starts getting hot. But he would specifically stay at that time. And I asked him, you know, I was talking one day and, you know, saying something about this, you know, it's a bit hot today. And he said, no, it's very nice. And I was saying, really? You know, like that? Because generally you stay in the West, you would think this is hot. He says, yes, exactly. I stay in the West. It's so cold and freezing. The cold gets right into your bones and all that. So then being here in this hot, it kind of like bakes your bones and he feels good. So that's the thing, it's just, it can be interpreted whatever is the situation that works for you, right? That's the difficulty. That's why he says it's manasa pratyaksha, means only experienced within the mind, because the dead matter that the body's made out of and everything else around actually doesn't have an experience. We have the experience, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So then what to do? Then it's a matter of, okay, if we're dealing with this is the actual reality we're dealing with, then how to get some benefit, how to know what's actually solid, what's actually important. So that's then what's given in the scriptures, what's given directed by the acharyas. Then if we put ourselves in that kind of situation, and with that kind of understanding as they give, then the experiences we get, because now they're in connection with Krishna, that starts to bring us towards the real experience. Yes?
I was listening to one of the lectures on the video, so I couldn't ask the question. In this connection...
that side, this side, you're going... One of the things from the video, that's not sure. From the light. Okay. Oh, that guy.
You're being live broadcast.
Oh, but it's over there now. So okay. So. Yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't ask the question. You were talking about, in connection to this, you spoke about Pramana Chetana, an energy called Pramana Chetana. So I just wanted to see if you could please elaborate
on Pramana Chaitanya. Praman means your evidence, means your understanding of it. So the point is that everything's covered in ignorance because it's in the material world, because the ignorance is that you don't see it connected to Krishna. So depending upon what is the nature of the Pramana Chaitanya that you have, then there'll be some uncovering of whatever is the object you're trying to perceive so that it's perceivable. But it'll only be uncovered to that degree of your level of consciousness. Does that make sense? Yeah, because you wouldn't want something else, right? It's like, let's say the business person goes into a situation, that you could get some economic benefit from, right? So he wants to see up to that level of economics. If he can't see that, then he'll be disturbed because it's not a high enough. He just sees the things that are there, or, but if you can see the business aspect of it, then they're happy, right? Now, what if he sees higher than that? He sees how, actually everything's illusory, and, how it's doesn't have any real value in life, and, the detachment that is there, would he be happy? You understand? He wants to see the business side of it.
So it's actually a whole energy working like this. It's called Pramana Chaitanya.
Why, you think you're doing everything yourself? I look, I see. Like that. I mean, didn't you figure it out? It means Twilight Zone should have given you an indication of that. It means they're controlling everything, you're not. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So the whole point is that's through Krishna's potency, then it's revealed according to if you're a materialist, then according to your karma of what you're supposed to see. By your previous activities of what you want to see. Yeah? Okay.
A mundane illustration, but I think there's the Hong Kong Savings Bank. It's an international. It has you can get accounts international. You throw your money in Hong Kong, your Australia.
Okay.
The way they play on this is so they target expats who are traveling.
Okay.
And need to be able to access money internationally.
Okay.
And in all the airports, as you're entering on the plane, you'll see HCSB.
Okay. Yeah.
And it will have, for example, a chili, and it will say pleasure, and then exactly the same photo. The next catalogue will say pain.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
it will have
True.
a car, and it will say transport, and then it will have exactly the same car. It will say status. And
Okay.
It will have exactly the same car.
Yeah.
It will say polluter.
Okay.
So exactly the same images.
Yes.
Different titles, and it changes the entire experience, interpretation, the Pramana Chaitanya of the image, and the experience that you have from viewing it. And it's
Yeah. No,
and
it is.
It's a campaign that's been running for some decades, actually. Must be very effective.
Yeah.
It helps the consciousness.
Yeah. See, understand? So that means what you're going to perceive. Then you're going to interpret that and run it through the rationale process in the mind, right? So it's going to bring up your previous experiences in that. So just like there, that it's status, or it's transportation, or it's pollution. So when you bring up your previous experiences of that, then you're going to have something in there. And generally, what area you move in, that's generally the area that it's going to be. So if you're a greenie, then it's always going to be polluting, right? If you're into, the social things, it'll be status, right? And if you're just a, practical guy, or just you don't think about these things, then it's just something that gets you from point A to point B. You understand? So then when that comes up, then you're going to analyze it. So my previous experience of this is, like this, let's say pollution. So now is this also in that category? So then you're analyzing all that, and depending on your identity, I'm a Can you still say greenies, or is that totally like, you know, there'll be pitchforks and torches outside the front? It's okay, yeah, because nowadays you can't say anything, you know. Okay, so then, you know, you identify that I'm a, you know, what do you call it? The eco-wallahs, yeah, an eco-warrior. So therefore, yes, then this is a polluter, right? Does that make sense? So it just one reinforces the other, but then if you get an impression that has some other aspect to it, then when you analyze it, you can change. So in other words, the samskar will see how you see it, and what you're seeing may influence the samskar. Does that make sense? Yeah, so you always get those, yeah? So it goes back and forth like that. So what you're seeing, that's the first thing, but you don't have an emotional experience from it. Once you've analyzed it, then you have that emotional experience, because now you identify with it and you like that. That becomes an impression, right? That's kept in the memory. Does that make sense? So then when you go to the memory, then this is brought up, and then you start to compare them. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah?
I'm not sure how relevant. Just with artificial intelligence these days, they're training computers to think, not think, to make judgments, mimicking our mental evolution, right? We have the image, we have it in a bank, and when we get a new impression, we match it against the images that we had. So previously they had to code the computer to learn. Now the computers are self-learning, machine intelligence. So they give them images, and then it finds other images that it matches. And it just builds its bank of impressions of samskaras, and thereby is able to make discernments or judgments. On account of that. But it's mundane and
Yeah, but I'm saying
it's the mechanical process, but it doesn't have the emotional.
it won't have the emotional because it doesn't mean anything to the computer. So that's why we don't have to worry that there'll be Skynet. You understand? Because in Skynet, the idea there is the computers want to maintain their position, and they don't want the humans messing with that. But why would a machine care? Because there isn't an emotional and all that. You know, because there's I mean, for not knowing this process, you know, because this is all defined in Vedanta, is that it'll be thought that if you get knowledge, through knowledge, then consciousness comes, or, you know, some way it comes. You know, a lightning bolt hits a large bowl of soup or something, and then the next thing you know, there's something with, you know, that looks like an aquatic with some fetus crawling out of it, and as it crawls out, it transforms and morphs into other things until by the time it gets to the living room, then it's, you know, how you say, some variety of humanoid that then sits down in front of the television, you know, turns it on, and then starts regressing back into, yeah, like that. Yeah. Yeah. So, not understanding what life is, then there's always the concept it comes from matter. So then people have their imagination of what's the different ways that matter can become conscious. But because we know that the consciousness is coming from the living entity, then it can't happen. But it's always, how you say? It's fun and it makes a lot of money, right? But that's the thing. So it actually can't happen like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, academics have like serious discussion around how it might happen and how we need to be worried about it.
Yeah, it means because it might happen. It's by chance that shouldn't they be worried that they walk out of the you know, the building they work out down into the quad and out of the sky, just out of nowhere, just a grand piano drops out and squashes them into the pavement. Or if you think that's not possible, what about an elephant? Or, you know, I mean, I think in one movie it was monstrous sharks, right? You know, they come flying out of the air, and they're flying through the air and going to land on the ground. But instead of worrying about hitting the ground, they swallow the people that are there on the ground, and then hit the ground. You know, like that. You know, it's like, you know, you got to have your priorities, right? You know. So yeah, that's the difficulty, is that all these things are, how you say, the taste is in the speculation. You know, that's where it's gained. So that's, the samskara is then what you can, by intellectually, by using the reasoning process in something that's seemingly plausible. You know, I mean, you have your range of how absurd it can be. So if they're being more, you could say, analytical, then they want to keep it within a realm that at least is accepted within their thought, that it would be plausible. Though it may be stretching the boundaries, but it's still, you know, you could argue it a bit. But if you're having fun, then it's more, when it goes into the absurd, then it's even better. You know, it's just a matter of whether, you know, you as a person are using your intellect, or you as a, you know, a professor are using it. You know, you have to judge between the two, you know, so. That, yeah, no, it's a that's the difficulties. That's why it mentions here, manasa pratyaksha, means that which is experienced only within the mind. Right? So the pratyaksha means what's experienced, but it's manasa, it's only in the mind. So the gaining knowledge through the senses, that's pratyaksha. But then the experience the mind will have, that your mind has. Someone else doesn't. Like that academic has to talk with other similar academics to get that experience. So it would have to be those in a you know, how you say, in the same or a compatible discipline, because how they'll think will be the same. But like that, how you say, let's say you're talking someone from, you know, sociology, or, you know, the humanities. They may not be able to have the same conversation from a quantum physicist. You know, because how they'll think is completely different, or that. Or the music teacher, he won't even want to know about it, you know. And so then you have to stick to those who, their experiences through their mind are similar enough that you can have a conversation. So that's why there'll always be groups. This idea is that you'll break down all those barriers and everything, but then that's saying that everyone will have the same experience. But they don't and can't, you know. So
why is it that everybody is talking about the mind as something separate from us?
yeah,
Like, but is there even such a thing? Like,
as a mind.
Yeah, because it's like,
Then
because if I'm talking about the mind, then who is it that's actually talking about the mind? And why am I, like, troubled by it?
because you're the soul. You're the soul, and the mind is an element of dead matter that makes up the subtle body. That's why you can deal with it separately. And then within that, the intelligence is another aspect of the subtle body. So the mind and the intelligence can go on for hours holding conversations, and we sit by and, you know, either have a good time or not. Like that. So
which one is the voice in the head? Is it the mind, or is it the soul?
it depends what it's saying. If it's talking about this is what should be done and this is the logical thing, and that, no, but I feel, you know, this and that, but this one said this, and what about that? You see the two?
Right.
One's intelligence, one's mind.
And the soul doesn't have its own voice. We just sort of observe.
You're letting them talk. Means when you're watching television, do you want to talk also? You know, like that? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, if it's sports, then of course, then you talk. You're like that. You call that like that? yeah. So that's another thing. You know, or politics. Those two, then definitely you have a voice there. But It's always better if there's a few friends and there's some beer on the table. Then it makes the conversation go so much better, right? And the more the beer, the more exact and intelligent and, how you say, what do you call it? Universally applicable the solutions that group of individuals come up with. Yeah? Yeah, okay. You were going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say that the phenomenon of people having to talk within their own discipline, in a sense, that's an example that not of oneness and difference, because you have to have the thing that binds you,
Yes.
and then the different aspects of it become what it's interesting to speculate about.
Yes, yes.
It's still about a singular dialectic. I mean, it's still about
Yeah.
something that is common.
Yeah, it has to be common. Otherwise, there's no relationship. The common, it means if you don't have commonality, you can't have a relationship. But if you're not different, you can't have a relationship either.
Yeah, so it just falls all the way through everything.
Yeah.
Oneness and difference.
What is indifferent?
Oneness and difference.
Oneness and difference, yes. That's how everything functions. That's what we see in the morning. That Vyasadev's realization is that. Then he's able to write the Bhagavatam. Because before that, even though he was having, nice understanding and all that, and it's in one sense perfect, the understanding, but without having that realization of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, then you don't actually see what Narad Muni is talking about, how it's just about Krishna, and then everything else is seen in connection with that. Like that. So then it takes on its perfect position. So that's why for us, Bhagavatam is our book. Like you see other sampradayas, it's not necessarily their book. They respect it and everything like that, but like for the Lakshmi Sampradaya, for them, the Vishnu Purana will be more important. Because it'll be bringing out the, Vishnu and the qualities of majesty. Well, Bhagavatam, though it deals with that, we see it gets to the main part. It gets into the sweetness. And so they don't have a problem with that. For them, it's just an aspect of the Lord's pastimes, but still, it's not their main scripture. Yeah. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has quoted the following Shruti mantra in this connection. By the very senses and life air one is acquired, the uncurbed mind will again drag one away. So then, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the meaning of the verse is, if one rejects the lotus feet of one's spiritual master, all of one's previous spiritual advancement becomes null and void. This is already indicated in the previous verse by the words Guru Devat Atma. Unless one accepts a bona fide spiritual master in the authorized parampara as one's worshipable deity and life and soul, there's no question of overcoming the duality of material life. So, because it's also this aspect of manasa pratyaksha, means we have the material aspect, but you also have the spiritual. Because Krishna is unlimited, and so then which aspect of Krishna you perceive and you appreciate, so that's then what you get from the parampara. There's a particular flavor, a particular mood, and that aspect. It's just, we see in Nectar Devotion when Krishna's coming back from the pasturing grounds, when he comes into Vrindavan, then Rupa Goswami is showing how all these different devotees are all relating to him at once, and he's reciprocating with them all at once. And each one is very, very different. Like that. So that aspect is there. He is rasa. So then what's your particular attraction to him is there. So in its natural state, then we see it's wonderful. And then you associate with those who that is what you're dealing with. But because it's dealing with Krishna, then it's not an illusion. It's actually real. It's just a variety within so many options that are there. But at the same time, as we see from the scriptures, there's a hierarchy and there's, what relates with what, and there's a science to it, like that. But the experience of it is what you're experiencing. right? Because the knowledge can't give you that experience. It can tell you the situation of it, the definitions of the aspects, and how they relate to each other, the different aspects of prema and rasa and all that. But it can't give you the experience. You have to experience. So as long as we're experiencing the material, and that's what's important to us, that's what our value is, then the spiritual will be that much less. So as we reduce the material experience, then the spiritual can increase. So that means as we see things separate from Krishna, then it'll be a material experience. As we see things connected to Krishna, we get the spiritual experience. So that's what he's showing, is that you have to switch this. That's what we're trying to do. Do we see the difference what's going on here in now we're on the 11th canto here, as opposed to previous cantos. Previous cantos will be showing you the aspect of how in your conditions positioned, how that mechanically can be engaged in Krishna's service. Right? But here it's just talking about the shift in the consciousness, because in the other one you have to shift the consciousness to do that. But we won't put an emphasis on that. We'll put an emphasis on, I'm not doing this activity, now I'm purified it, or I'm engaging it in this way, or... Does that make sense? You know, before I drive the car just because I like to, now I drive to go to the temple or for other... So it'll be focused on that aspect. But what you see here, it's just in that shifting of the consciousness. If that's there, then all the other things will happen. So that's why 11th canto is more technical, but it's more technical in defining that consciousness, how exactly that's working. So that's the finer detail that's there. Yeah. Yeah. So therefore, and unless we accept this mentality and mood of these acharyas, then how are we going to perceive Krishna? Because otherwise, what are we going to work with? We're working with our material mind. We try to project that onto Krishna. Then we end up all kinds of, I say, basically your bogus apasampradayik kind of, thing. That's how you get the sahajiyas and this and that. They project what it is. Or, he's there, we meditate upon him, but the form's not eternal, because for us, liberation is important. So then you end up with the impersonalists, the yogis, you end up with all these different things. So unless they've come in contact with the parampara, then you're not going to get that spiritual experience and that way of looking at it. So that's why he says, unless one's accepted, in the authorized, the spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master, in the authorized parampara, then there's no question of overcoming the duality of life, because you won't, because the mind has to accept and reject, and you're going to accept and reject based on the material. But if you accepted the spiritual master, then you accept and reject based on what is connection with Krishna. Right? So it's imperative. It's not something to, you feel like or not, or, which way the wind's blowing or something, like that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has made the following comments on this verse. Quote, control of the mind is a result of living a life of devotional service to the Lord. By the influence of fixed devotional service, the accepting and rejecting mind can stop its thirst for sensory enjoyment apart from Krishna. Right? So it's not that the mind is not going to be engaged with the senses. It's just now going to be engaged with the senses in connection with Krishna. So the mind's still going to be able to do what it does. Senses do what they do. But now the difference is it's connected to Krishna. So that changes then your experience, what you experience. Because otherwise you just experience the temporary. Then you can experience the eternal. So, yeah.
Well, what is the
Krishna. Like that. So Krishna conscious, that everything, seeing everything related to Krishna.
But if I have a soul, then why is my soul not giving me that?
No, but you are the soul. So how are you going to give yourself? You can situate yourself in what will give nourishment. So now we've situated in the material, and that doesn't really give a whole lot of nourishment. Or you can situate in the spiritual because it's connected to Krishna. Krishna being the source, then that's where it's going to get. So electricity doesn't nourish itself. The generator nourishes the electricity. So we're electricity. Krishna's the generator. So when we bring ourselves in line and connection with Krishna, that's where nourishment comes. Otherwise, it just kind of fritters away. Right? Does that make sense? In Transcendental Krishna consciousness, there is no contradiction, pettiness, or lack of ecstasy. In other words, it is not like a material object. Right? So material objects is, there's contradiction, because there are different things, this and that. Then there's no pettiness, because it's just about yourself and what you want for yourself. And there's no lack of ecstasy. It will always bring about happiness. Right? Like that. In other words, it's not like a material object, which always proves temporary and constantly miserable. Having forgotten Krishna, the conditioned living entity is suffering the misdirection and perversion of his own so-called intelligence. The living entities are fragmental parts of the supreme shelter, Krishna, but have fallen from Krishna's kingdom of spiritual pastimes. Because of forgetting the Supreme Lord, they become prone to sinful life and turn their attention to dangerous material objects, which fill them with constant fear. Because these objects, they're all temporary, and so if we're dependent upon them to make us happy, they're temporary, they're going to go away, so then there's going to be fear. If one desires to subdue the mind, which is constantly engaged in the duality of mental concoction, one must take to the devotional service of Lord Krishna. Right? So then the mind is not concocting things based on possibilities that don't exist. It's based on what is the relationship connection with Krishna. So, yeah. Interesting here, because living entities are fragmental parts of the supreme shelter, Krishna, that have fallen from Krishna's kingdom of spiritual pastimes. Because generally he's always quoted that, where did Jiva fall from? He said, Brahman. Because as soon as you say that, no one asks another question. Absolutely not. Totally satisfied. Right? But then the point is the definition of what does Brahman mean? It means the spiritual situation. Like that. But if you say it that way, then, discussion goes on for weeks. Like that. So, text 39. An intelligent person who has controlled his mind and conquered fear should give up all attachment to material objects. Such as wife, family, and nation. And does that also mean even the first nation? I can understand giving up second, third, fourth, but what? Okay. And should wander freely without embarrassment. But only First Nation wanders freely. So then, but if you give it up, then can you wander freely? Okay. See, that's the problem with the material. It has all these contradictions. Yeah. And should wander freely without embarrassment. Right? Embarrassment means not seeing anything in relationship with a spirit. If you see things in relationship with Krishna, related with the soul, then you're never embarrassed. But if we're seeing things on the material platform, there's always going to be a moment of embarrassment. Like you're going along in your nice Lamborghini, people are looking and everything like that, and you're, doing well and all that. And then there's one of those big monster speed bumps in front of you that's way bigger than the car can actually go over. So then as you're looking at them and all that, then you hit that and you're stuck. That's called embarrassing. So, hearing and chanting the holy names of the Lord, the bearer of the chariot wheel. Right? That's what one should do. The holy names of Krishna are all auspicious because they describe his transcendental birth and activities, which he performs within this world for the salvation of the conditioned souls. Thus, the holy names of the Lord are sung throughout the world.
Are you reading the purport or the text?
No, this is the text. They're really big shlokas. Really big shlokas. Okay. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, this blissful process of chanting the holy names of the Lord without a material conception is called Sugama Margam, a very enjoyable path. Similarly, Lord Krishna has described the process of bhakti as Shushukam Kartum, very joyfully performed. And Srila Lochan Das Thakur has sung Sabha Avatara Sar Shiromani Kevala Anandakanda. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's process for worshipping is Kevala Anandakanda, simply joyful. In this connection, Srila Prabhupada stated that people in any part of the world can assemble, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, read from authorized books such as Bhagavad Gita as it is, and accept Krishna Prasadam sumptuously, just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did in Navadvip. To be successful in this program, however, Lochan Das Thakur has warned that Vishaya Charya, one must give up material sense gratification. So that's the point that's there. So we have a dual aspect that's happening here. One is you have a form that will how you say, in perception will be like what just said here. So like the Nava-Yugendras, they themselves, they wander around, they don't have anything. I don't even think they have clothes. So let alone house, family, and this and that. So they have no place, no identity. They just wander around chanting the Lord's names and His glories. And they're transcendently situated, and so therefore they're perfectly situated. Right? The other aspect is that, as Lochan Das Thakur says here, you have to give up material sense gratification. And so when that's given up, whatever one's situation, means that you don't identify with the family, identify with a particular nation or anything like that. You just identify as servant of Krishna. So therefore, everything in your environment you see in relation to Krishna, and then engaging everything in that way, you're transcendentally situated. So the same activities can go on. Does that make sense? So that's why you see when the Bhagavatam is being spoken, then you'd have you have Sukadev Goswami there, Parikshit Maharaj, you'd have so many of the other great sages are there. You have the demigods coming down, you have Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Narad Muni. So you have a wide range of those who are, how you say, just the saintly persons. Then you have the demigods who they themselves are, grihastas and working in a position of Kshatriya, Brahma, and so many of the Prajapatis and that, his sons are Brahmins, and they're working in their capacity. So you have this wide range because everybody's seeing everything connected to Krishna. So it works very nicely. So, yeah.
So what do you mean wide range? Is it everyone has a different capacity or different level?
No, it's the same principle being applied in their different situations. There also may be a range of realizations, but the point that we're bringing out here is this one verse can work for everybody. Right? Does that make sense? Should give up all attachment to material objects, such as wife, family, and nation. Right? That doesn't mean that you're not performing duties in connection to them. Right? In other words, all the ashrams then would be doing this. Brahmacharis, they're not married, so they don't have any material objects in that. They're supposed to practice not being attached to these things and just following the order of Guru. Grihastas then will be involved in the family environment, community environment, but it doesn't mean they have to be attached to it. It just means that's the medium they're functioning in. Vanaprasthas, then they're retiring from that, so it'll be very minimal. And then sannyas means, again, they're not. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's the main point. And so at least if not, you haven't figured it out before, then by the time you're sannyas, then ideally you should be able to figure this out. So externally it'll have that look by this time. But otherwise, the earlier you figure, like Prahlad Maharaj, we see him at 3 years old has already figured this out. Right? So, he's cool.
But then he becomes a king.
Yeah, but he continues with the same. Because I think he's known for, of the 9 processes of remembering. He's always absorbed in remembering the Lord, though he's the king and does all his kingly duties. So that's it. That's the point, is that, yeah, and always, describe his transcendental birth and qualities and chanting the holy name. So he's always doing that.
Remembering would indicate there's the abstract or the getting in the material universe. Apparently that's, if I'm correct, that's the reason for our forgetting. So how do you understand forgetting, remembering, and then all knowing? There is no element of remembering or forgetting. It's all seeing, all knowing, and you're just always, like, there's no remembering Krishna, it's always there, but you're not removed from it. There's no need for effort. It's a natural state of
But that's the existence of it. Remembrance there is that's a state of existence, but then there's actually the service that is rendered by remembering. Because the point is the engagement of the mind in thinking about the Lord, then that's always something that can go on. That's why it's one of the 9 processes of devotion. But if we're just engaged in only in the situational aspect, then you get what you're talking about. But the point is the situational aspect is only brings a certain amount of happiness. But when on in that eternal situation, then you engage in positive activity. Then that's where you get what they're talking about, this, Ananda Kande, Kevala Ananda Kanda. This kind of the ecstasy that's going on. Because the other one is just a nice, pleasant, neutral state. But then what they're talking about here is you go beyond that. You're situated there, but you go beyond that into a dynamic, transcendental, ecstatic state. Does that make sense? Yeah. Srila Jiva Goswami has emphasized, if one wants to be successful in chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord, one must adopt the process as it is coming down in the Sat Parampara, the transcendental disciplic succession. And the Sat Parampara can be identified by reference to bona fide Vedic scriptures. Contrary to the opinion of uninformed critics, the followers of Krishna consciousness are not mindless or fanatical. Right? So then it's always about Guru Sadhu and Shastra. It comes down because that's the mood that we get. That's how then Krishna is viewed. And so, because he is, how do you say? He is who he is, but at the same time as he is unlimited. And so he has his ways he likes to do things. So which aspects of how he likes to do and interact that you're interested in, that's what then you get from the Parampara. How to approach that, how to appreciate that. So, yeah. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has stated that throughout the world the Supreme Lord is known by many names, some of them expressed in vernacular language, but any name used to indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is one without a second, beyond the influence of material nature, can be accepted as a holy name of God. According to this verse, that is indicated by the word loke. Right? So different individuals or religions may have different names, but it just needs this criteria. The Supreme Lord, one without a second, beyond the influence of material nature. Then you can say, okay, that's the name of God, because the names themselves will be defining some characteristic. And so if the characteristic, it means it's a transcendental characteristic, then it will be defining God. Right? Does that make sense? So therefore your turtle is not going to be God. Right? That also includes your hamster, right? Okay. One should not, okay. It says, one may go, okay. One should not misinterpret the word vicharet, one should wander, to mean that while chanting the holy name of Krishna, one may go anywhere or engage in any activity without discrimination. Therefore it is stated, vicharet asangaha. One may wander freely, but at the same time one must strictly avoid the association of those who are not interested in Krishna consciousness or engaged in sinful life. Lord Chaitanya says, asat sanga tyag, e Vaishnav achar. That by giving up bad association, accepting good, that's the nature of the devotees. Because you want to hear and chant about Krishna, so you want to be with those who do that. Right? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that the word dvaita, or duality, expresses the false understanding that some object has a substantial existence independent of Krishna. That's the duality. No, everything's connected to Krishna, so that's non-dual. But the point is it exists in its own there, but it's existing in Krishna's existence. It's his energy. It's controlled by him. So its existence is connected to Krishna. So that's what's meant by the duality here, or the dvaita here. Does that make sense? So factually, we actually understand what this non-dual means. Others, they think it's all just one thing and there's homogeneous, there's no differentiation. But if there's no differentiation, then there's no need to worry about individual living entities. And if that's there, we don't have to worry about this guy, espousing his philosophy, because according to him, he doesn't exist anyway. And if he doesn't exist, who wants to hear the blabberings of the non-existent, right? So like that. So they're understanding that exclusive monism doesn't work. But Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, where it's one and different simultaneously, that then explains everything. That works out, resolves all the philosophical difficulties that any philosophy has. Right?
It's like synthesis, yeah. So you have thesis and superficial.
Yeah. Because they're both existing together, but at the same time they have their uniqueness. Otherwise, why define it? Because if something doesn't exist separately, then why would you define it? Right? But at the same time, how can it exist separately since everything's Krishna? So that's the point: is they exist separately, but at the same time they're not separate. That's the point. We may say it's beyond intelligence, but that's exactly our point also. Yeah. The Mayavadi conception of a Dvaita, which lacks any spiritual distinctions, is simply another manifestation of the mind's function of acceptance and rejection, right? Because they were accepting the material, it made them miserable, so then they reject it, now there's nothing. So it's still just a mental position, it's not a transcendental. Right? The eternal appearance and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead never contradict the concept of Advaita Jnana, or transcendental knowledge beyond duality. So Advaita Jnana means not that it's all one like they're saying, means it's beyond the transcendental knowledge, it's beyond duality. This material world is duality. We think that things here have a substance separate from Krishna. But actually, no, everything's connected to Krishna. Text 40. By chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord, one comes to the stage of love of Godhead. When the devotee is fixed in his vow as an eternal servant of the Lord, and he gradually becomes very much attached to a particular name and form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as his heart melts with ecstatic love, he laughs very loudly, or cries, or shouts. Sometimes he sings and dances like a madman, for he is indifferent to public opinion. Because the public opinion it also, again, is just their mental state. And it doesn't have any importance other than within their circle. Because we say, we have to fit in with everybody. Which everybody? Even you look at it, in sociology, there's so many demographics. I'm not sure what we're up to these days. How many are there. But I think, very, on a regular basis, more and more have to be added. And then, then they'll have to group them again to get it smaller, and then they'll just keep expanding and like that. I saw one, I think it was a, the similar kind of thing. It was a political cartoon on when Russia, then broke up, and then, each state is wanting to be separate, and then within that and everything. So then they had a picture. It was using that classic American kind of painting where there's a farmer there in his overalls with his pitchfork, and then his wife there, kind of very plain and all that kind of thing like that. So they had the two of them standing there, and in the background you could see their simple, farmhouse, but next to it was this huge, like billboard that said something like, the independent, whatever it is, sovereign state of this guy's farm, So like that, it just keeps going down like that. So, yeah.
It's amazing how much this verse anticipates Lord Chaitanya. That it's almost
Yeah.
a description of what he did and what he gave.
Yeah. So you can see is that it's a standard Vedic position. Sometimes we're saying, oh, we're not Vedic, but we're very Vedic. Vedic just means it's according to the scriptures as Krishna gives them. But then we'll have a specific flavor. And so for us, then, these aspects then are even more manifest. Because it's accepted by everybody, but at the same time as other sampradayas, because of majesty, then, they like to keep things very orderly. But they do accept this aspect of a Paramahamsa. And they have a few, but not, I think there was this one, Sri Vaishnav, liberated. She was a lady, and she never wore clothes. And so then they're, how do you say, going around, and then they're there at a festival, and then the deity's coming out. I'm not sure who it was. I think it's Rangaji is coming out. And then when they saw he was coming, she asked the Brahmin next to her, "Can I have your chadar?" And he said, "Why?" "Because I want to put it on." He says, "Why would you put it on? You always walk, you're liberated. You're always, you don't make any distinctions on this platform." And she said, "Yes, that's because everything I'm moving with is all the energy of the Lord. So it's all female. So females with females was the problem. But here comes a male." So, she wants to cover up. Yeah, so you have that, but it's more, it'll be lesser. Our sampradaya seems to, like you said, Lord Chaitanya, the ecstasies and the transcendental and his devotees, it's much more of a major aspect, because this not caring for indifferent to public opinion is a specific thing that you'll see in the conjugal rasa. But it'll be there on all of but that you'll see it'll be more of a major aspect. Just the intensity is so much greater. So. Yeah, no, nice point. Okay. Yeah, so the point of the public, we were saying the public opinion, worrying about that is every individual in the public has a different opinion, as we said. So there's no question you'll fit in. So you find those that you're inspired in their association, associate with them, as it said in the last verse. You don't just associate with anybody, but with those who you are inspired to associate with. And in that group, then that's how you function. Okay. Srila Sridhar Swami has described the spiritual situation or the perfectional stage of life in which one's devotional service to the Supreme Lord is enriched by ecstatic love. At that time, one's spiritual duties are entirely beyond the scope of worldly affairs. So when you come to this platform, where one's, totally in the platform of ecstasy, then there's no duties to perform here. It's just a matter of absorption in the Lord, because there's no need. Not that you can't do if there's need, because you'll see, we saw so many great personalities do function within that. But there's no need. They're doing it just because it's beneficial for others. But for themselves, they have no need. While if you're conditioned, you actually need to follow your duties to engage them in the Lord's service because we identify with them. So only by taking what you identify with, connecting it to Krishna, then it removes that identity. It's like, like the example of taking out a thorn with a thorn. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, so here's then. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 778, there's the following statement by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. While chanting the holy name of the Lord in pure ecstasy, I lose myself, and thus I laugh, cry, dance, and sing like a madman. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately approached the spiritual master to ask him why he had apparently become mad by chanting the holy name. His guru replied, "It is the nature of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra that anyone who chants it immediately develops this loving ecstasy for Krishna." In this connection, Srila Prabhupada has commented, "These symptoms are very prominently manifest in the body of a pure devotee. Sometimes when our students of the Krishna consciousness movement chant and dance, even in India, people are astonished to see how these foreigners have learned to chant and dance in this ecstatic fashion. As explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, actually this is not due to practice. For without extra endeavor, these symptoms become manifest in anyone who sincerely chants the Hare Krishna mantra." Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has warned us in this regard about the ungodly sahajiyas who imitate the pastimes of the Supreme Lord in an unauthorized way, neglecting the standard injunctions of Vedic scriptures, foolishly trying to take the position of Krishna. Right? Srila Prabhupada comments in this regard. One who has attained this bhava stage is no longer under the clutches of material energy. Similarly, Krishnadas Kaviraj states, "For a devotee who has actually developed bhava, love of Godhead, the pleasure derived from dharma, artha, kama, and moksha appears like a drop in the presence of the sea." Right? It's not that it's not there, it's just drops. So how much it deserves attention in the performance of your duty and how much importance you place on it, that is all the more you see it. Right? So therefore, in here, it's like a drop compared to the ocean. Like that.
Can I understand properly that the Prophet said it doesn't come about when it comes to practice?
Yes, it means it itself manifests. We perform the sadhana, we're practicing, but it's not because of our practice that it comes. It becomes because of Krishna's being pleased with us, therefore he reveals, then these things happen. So that's what the whole point of the sadhana is for, is that we practice doing things that are pleasing to Krishna. And when we do them in the right attitude, then Krishna is very happy. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? In the spiritual world, they do that naturally. They just follow that path of affection. But for us, we're following so many paths other than, spiritual affection. And so then things don't work so well. So one has to, that's what I was saying in the previous, you have to give that mentality up. And as you give that up, then you can start to appreciate the spiritual attachment. So, yeah. As already stated in the previous verse of this chapter, one exhibits the ecstatic symptoms of love of Godhead when he is asanga, free from all attachment to material sense gratification. Right? So that's the thing, is that the spiritual is hard to taste because we're trying to taste the material. You give up that attachment to tasting the material, then you can taste the spiritual. Does that make sense? It means if you're eating one thing, you can't taste another. You have to give up what you're eating and taste the other. Right? So, yeah. The word loka bahya in this verse indicates that a pure devotee on the platform of prema, love of God, is not at all concerned with ridicule, praise, respect, or criticism from ordinary people in the bodily concept of life. Krishna is the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when he reveals himself to a surrendered servant, all doubt and speculation about the nature of the absolute truth are vanquished forever. Right? Because what does it matter what they say? Because it is connected to Krishna. Just because they don't see it, they think what you're doing is strange. The point is you're absorbed in Krishna. Now, if you want to preach to them, then it's a matter of showing them how to see in the same way. Does that make sense? That's what you have. So in this connection, Sripad Madhvacharya has quoted a verse from the Varaha Purana. Quote, "Some devotees of the Lord exhibit external symptoms, acting like madmen. Others are introspective devotees, and still others partake of both natures. It is by one's steadfastness and by the merciful vibrations emanating from one's mouth that one's devotion can be judged, not otherwise." Right? So that you're steadfast in service to the Lord, and that you're always absorbed in, what you're talking about is, always in connection with Krishna, right? Then that's how you can judge one's position, like that. Because the ecstatic symptoms, if you're using that as the one, some may manifest that, some don't at all, and some it's a mix. Like we see with Rupa Goswami, then I think there's only one example of him manifesting ecstatic symptoms. Otherwise, then he would always avoid manifesting them. But one time it was, and even then they didn't really understand. It was only then, by one symptom, then they could understand. Like that. Yeah. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a very nice example to illustrate ecstatic laughing and other symptoms of love of Godhead. Quote, "Oh, that thief Krishna, the son of Jashoda, has entered the house to steal the fresh butter. Grab him, keep him away." Hearing these menacing words spoken by the elderly gopi Jarati, Krishna immediately prepares to leave the house. The devotee to whom this transcendental pastime is revealed laughs in ecstasy, but suddenly he can no longer see Krishna. He then cries in great lamentation, right? Because Krishna is there, but because now he's left, then you can't see Krishna like that. So he's laughing because of what's going on, and then now he's like, "Oh, I achieved the greatest fortune in the world, and now it has suddenly slipped from my hands." Thus the devotee cries loudly, "Oh, my Lord, where are you? Give me your answer." The Lord answers, "My dear devotee, I heard your loud complaint, and so I have again come before you." Upon seeing Lord Krishna again, the devotee begins to sing. "Today my life has become perfect." Thus overwhelmed with transcendental bliss, he begins to dance like a madman. So all these things are going on. So it's not that it's not a show, right? Like that. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also notes that the word druta chitta, or, quote, "with a melted heart," indicates that one's heart, melted by the fire of anxiety to see the Lord, becomes like Jambu Nadi, a river of rose apple juice. The Acharya further points out, the present and previous verse clearly distinguish the exalted position of Shravanam, Kirtan, and Vishnu, chanting and hearing the name and glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya has also emphasized this chanting. That I think we opened with that. Hari Nama, Hari Nama, Hari Nama, Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nisteva, 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 Gatiranyata. In this age of Kali, there's no alternative. There's no alternative. There's no alternative for spiritual progress. But the holy name, the holy name, the holy name of the Lord. Okay. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur recommends that we study the following verse in this connection. "Let the garrulous populace say whatever they like. We shall pay them no regard." Thoroughly maddened by the ecstasy of the intoxicating beverage of love for Krishna, we shall enjoy life, running about, rolling on the ground, and dancing in ecstasy. That's from Padyavali 73. Padyavali is Rupa Goswami?
It's his compilation
Okay.
of many different authors. So each verse is a different author.
Oh.
It's like a compendium.
But it's Rupa Goswami's compendium.
Yeah, Rupa Goswami.
Okay. Okay.
The authors are so many.
Oh, so many different. Okay. Cool. Okay, so we're good on the, yeah. So in other words, when you're in transcendental ecstasy, don't worry what others are thinking. Like that. Text 41. A devotee should not see anything as being separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Ether, fire, air, water, earth, the sun and other luminaries, all living entities, the directions, trees and other plants, the rivers and oceans. Whatever a devotee experiences, he can consider to be an expansion of Krishna. Right? Because you're going to get an experience from that dealing with whatever it is that you see. But you should not see that that is different from Krishna. It's expansion of Krishna. Like that. Thus, seeing everything that exists within the creation as the body of the Supreme Lord Hari, the devotee should offer his sincere respects to the entire expansion of the Lord's body. Right. So what we see is that everything is coming from Krishna, but everything is reminding you of Krishna. So still, Krishna is there, his creation is there, his energies are there. Right? That's the important. So it's not the impersonalist concept of everything's Krishna. Does that make sense? Yeah. Srila Jiva Goswami is given the example from the Puranas. Because of a greedy person's obsession with money, wherever he goes, he sees an opportunity for acquiring wealth. Similarly, a very lusty man notices women everywhere. In the same way, a pure devotee should see the transcendental form of the Lord within everything, since everything is the expansion of the Lord. Right? Does that make sense? That's how it gives the example. This greedy man, if he goes to the forest, he will immediately consider whether it would be profitable to purchase the forest land and sell the trees to a paper mill. Right? Means others will go there and the nature and nice and the animals and that. And he just goes, wow, we could cut this all down and make a lot of money. Things like that. Yeah, so you could cut down the trees, then make all the money off of that, the paper mill. Then on the land, then you can develop condos, and then good. Huh? Yeah. So that's what it says. The greedy man, he can do that.
Meditation on the world as Krishna different aspects. It's done in two different ways. Well, one is where you see the mountains as you see the body or the ether as Krishna's.
Okay, yeah, the universal form aspect, yeah.
And,
yeah.
The wind as is breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've also seen some descriptions that they see the form of the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and so it goes, one way is you're seeing the world into Krishna,
Mm-hmm.
and the other way is where you see Krishna, and you see, his navel is like the ocean, or his hair is like the clouds, and so see.
But both of those.
Yeah.
Here it says, I mentioned here, therefore as stated in this verse, pranamet, one should offer one's sincere respects to everything. Srila Jiva Goswami has mentioned that we should see the personal form of Krishna everywhere. Right? So this verse does not approve of the impersonal atheistic philosophy that everything is God. So that first one that you're talking about is that then Prabhupada mentions that's given for the impersonalists who don't have any understanding or concept of the personal form of the Lord, then so that they get adjusted with that idea of the personal form. But the natural thing is that everything here will remind you of the Lord and His form and this and that. Like the example of the gopis seeing the Tamaltri as black, and it's the same color like Krishna, so they remember Krishna. So He's everything, so everything can remind you of that, because whatever the quality is there, then there's something to do with Him personally, a pastime He's done, something with His associates. So in that way, then you're able to appreciate everything connected with Him. So it's just a beginning stage for those who are impersonalists, so they don't So those who are not impersonalists, they don't really have to worry about that. But it does have a way how it's all Krishna's energies, it's all connected to him, it all has his qualities within it. That's why it functions and works. So it's not that it can't be used, but it's different from than the exact way it's described, because that was for those who are just adjusting to that. But but for the devotee, then they'll use it on a more advanced level, like that. Either way, seeing this, reminding them of Krishna, or of Krishna, then this way, it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of, yeah.
Seems really important because it's not just prayers, and then it's accurate prayers, and it's virtuous prayers.
It's every prayers.
Yeah, basically.
It's every personified Vedas. Every prayers, it's always there. You'll see is that there's specific fundamental points that are always there. And so they'll always mention it, because they know it, but then the realization of it, then that's how you tell. Because that's the one thing is that I think is one definition I think that was given before was the neophyte will see the material energy connected with them. And then, then the result can be given to Krishna. The Madhyamas will see that it's connected to Krishna. So it's already Krishna's. The Uttamas will all see everything connected to Krishna. So we see is that this is actually a very advanced state. But like is pointed out, it's not an impersonal thing. It always reminds you of the person Krishna and his name, form, qualities, and pastimes. That's how you know it's this advanced state. Like the gopis, anything they see, they go wandering in the forest, and everything reminds them of Krishna and this, and they're performing his past. They're in their acting enacting his pastimes and doing all these different things. Does that make sense? So that's how they always are able to maintain. Basically their equilibrium is that everything reminds them of Krishna. Because otherwise then the separation from Krishna. But if everything's Krishna, then technically you're not separated. But at the same time is that since it's not the original form, it'll give a flavor of separation. But being absorbed in Krishna, you'll be on that transcendental ecstatic platform. So then it just enhances when you're with Krishna. So in other words, separation simply makes being with Krishna better. And because now being with Krishna is better, therefore the separation will be greater. So it's actually about being with Krishna, but the intensity of the separation will be more, and it increases. So we'll stop here. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,